Yay, it's recording. Yay. So this is going to be a super quick mini lesson for you guys on just getting started with rhetoric, kind of dipping our toes into the pool of rhetoric. That was a weird metaphor. I apologize. But this is for you guys who do not have class today, since today is Labor Day, but I wanted to give you the same basic experience that you would have if you were in Wednesday's class. So if you could open up the PowerPoint that goes along with this presentation. It is the PowerPoint called What is Rhetoric? And my presentation will follow along with that PowerPoint. So once you've got it open, we will get started. So we're not in week 2, we're in week 3. Oh no, my first slide is a lie, I apologize. So week 3, what is rhetoric? Part 1, because there's going to be more on rhetoric later in the semester. So if we look at the first slide, I'd just like you to take a moment and kind of orient your thinking into rhetoric. What do you think it is? How do you think it's used in daily life? So just take a moment and sit with those questions for a little bit, or sit with them until we meet next week. What do you feel rhetoric is to you? Maybe what have you learned about it before? Some of you may have studied it in previous classes. So my next slide, my really super condensed definition of rhetoric is that rhetoric is the art of how to form an argument. Now, this is not the end-all be-all definition. There are many different ways to go about defining rhetoric, but most of them boil down to kind of this idea. You may find some conflicting definitions of rhetoric. Even rhetoricians don't agree always on the definition of rhetoric, but for the purposes of this class, we will be using rhetoric is the art of how to form an argument. Next slide. As you can see, we have 2 triangles. The first triangle is Aristotle's rhetorical triangle. And this one is the one you may have heard of before with ethos, pathos, and logos. And the second version is not Aristotle's triangle. I'm not sure to whom it belongs, but it exists. And the other version is writer, audience, and purpose. So kind of take a look at these triangles. We'll start with Aristotle's triangle. Logos is facts. It's logic. It's that's what it is. It's facts and logic. Using evidence, using cold hard facts in order to make your argument would be a logos-based argument. And then pathos is empathy, it's emotions, it's that Sarah McLachlan commercial for the ASPCA with the sad music and the puppies and the crying and that's a pathos-based argument. Ethos used to mean an ethical-based argument or a moral-based argument, but the more modern definition of it is that it's a credibility-based argument. So, for instance, I'm your professor, and therefore you should listen to what I have to say about rhetoric. That's an ethos-based argument. As for the other triangle, I feel like it's pretty easily explained. Each point is kind of from the point of view of, or centered around, rather. So one is centered around the writer, one is centered around the audience, and one is centered around the purpose. Now, these two triangles... Can I make two triangles? These two triangles overlap each other, and different points meet at different places. And if you go to the next slide, we will see where those points meet. So ethos, our credibility argument, goes with the writer or speaker point of view. Text is too small for me to read. But ethos and speaker very much go hand in hand, because if it's a speaker-based argument, they're using themselves as the argument, and that goes towards credibility, and so the two of them play very well together. Logos is the purpose or message-based argument. What matters is what you have to say. What matters are the facts. What matters is the logic. What matters is the purpose of the argument. So those two work very well together. And then last but not least, pathos goes very well with audience, because you're playing on the emotions of your audience. You're trying to tug at their heartstrings. And so a pathos or pathos, either way, a based argument is very much audience-centric. Now, if we go to the next slide, we can see rhetoric witchcraft. We have Burke's Pentad, which looks very appropriate for Halloween. But what Burke basically does is he takes ethos, pathos, and logos and takes the logos part and he breaks it up into smaller pieces. He didn't feel like, having just 3 points to an argument was enough. And so we have act, or what is being done. We have agency, the means by which the action occurs. So how is the thing happening? Agent, the person is doing the act. So who is doing the act? Scene is the setting or background for the action, or the context for the action or argument. So it's kind of the where of things. And then purpose is the reason or rationale behind the action. So purpose remains the same. But otherwise, we kind of have this who, what, when, where, why, how that Burke builds for us to break rhetoric down into smaller pieces, so that you don't have kind of this overarching logos, which he kind of, I can't speak for him, but kind of encompasses a lot of things. So he broke logos down into different pieces. So for logos, we have purpose, we have the setting, background, or context, we have scene, and we have agency. We have the means by which the action is occurring. And then the act goes along with logos as well, actually. So we have it broken down into 4 different parts. And he kind of ignores pathos, because why have an emotion-based argument? And then the agent is obviously the author, the writer, the ethos. So I kind of end on our last slide with questions of what would you like to learn about rhetoric? What questions do you have about rhetoric? at this point in time, feel free to email me, and I will be happy to answer them either by email, or if I feel like it's a good question for the whole class, then I'll post it for the whole class. So hopefully you have enjoyed this tour through my PowerPoint, and I will see you in the next video when we talk about the genre charts.